What's going on, you guys? Hope you all are having a great day. Just some real talk with me today around training and how we go about reintroducing our what used to be our usual style of training back into our life post lockdown, right? Gyms and fitness facilities are starting to open back up, and starting to see more and more, posts and things showing people getting back into those facilities and into a routine again. And I just wanted to take the time to provide some information, some context to the way to go about that in an effective way. Because I get it. There's a lot of excitement and anticipation and focus on getting back to the things that we used to do in the gym, right? The movements we used to do, the things we haven't been able to do. And so obviously in this scenario, it's going to be very individualized perspective, individual person perspective, because for some of us, you may have had access to, barbell under some heavy loads, pull-up bars, etc., over the course of the lockdown. But for others, maybe you were doing things with bands the whole time or very light dumbbells the whole time. Okay. So the main point is that when you are returning, you're coming back to the gym. If you are someone that is intending to come back to the gym that you were going to and getting back into your training, one of the first questions I would have for you in regards to your training is, do you want to make progress? Now, it sounds like a very simple question and a simple answer to it, but how you go about returning to your training in a facility right away, that initial phase, will really dictate what you do and how you progress forward. Because if you haven't touched a barbell in 8-10 weeks, right? You haven't been up on a pull-up bar in that time. You haven't been under load in that time, okay, to the level that you were before. Going back and trying to test out your 1 rep max again, you're just asking for trouble, right? That's not the smartest move. Okay, going back and jumping back up and smashing a bunch of pull-ups, a bunch of kipping pull-ups, tearing your hands to shit, not the smartest move. Okay, so when you get back to things, as probably frustrating as it may feel and annoying as it may feel, working at sub-maximal percentages and loads to get back into those patterns, back into those movements, reintegrate and reconnect to those tissues that you haven't worked the same for the last 8, 9, 10 weeks is imperative to your progress. You spend 8, 9, 10 weeks potentially not doing those things. You can spend 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe even 4 weeks for some of you, depending on where you're at, reintegrating and rebuilding under those types of stimulus. For some of you, you may have found that you actually feel better and got more results training slightly differently than you did typically before, because you were more unilateral, right? A little more monostructural potentially. So you may have found that you got some progress that you weren't expecting due to not having the typical access to the usual pieces of equipment. So I want you guys to consider, when you get back to your training, if you come back in-house to a facility, touch the brakes a little bit, right? Hold yourself back just a touch, okay? Give yourself the opportunity for your body to reintegrate to those patterns, okay, to those movements. Getting back in and just fucking smashing yourself and trying to go after PRs and 1 rep maxes and shit like that right away, yeah, it may look cool or feel good in a certain way in the moment because you're chasing that intensity, but that's not going to lead to progress long term for you. Rebuild, get back into that flow, make sure that any deficiencies, compensations, inefficiencies in your movement are focused on. This is a prime opportunity to really dig in to those areas that maybe you've been neglecting. Right? Maybe you spent so much time before on the barbell, on the pull-up bar, doing certain movement patterns that you were not addressing the other stuff that you needed to address. You were working at such a high intensity for so long that you haven't addressed the ability to function properly. And you're just constantly in a cycle of high intensity push, then you break down. Then you need to rebuild, and then you go again, you break down. Let's try to keep that a little more consistent moving forward. This is a prime opportunity to do that. Instead of having these massive fluctuations, because you go super hard and then something breaks, and then you got to rebuild and go super hard and something breaks, let's try to make it a little more consistent. This is a prime opportunity to do that. So when you come back in, take that time. Yes, it's going to feel a little bit light. It's going to feel like, man, this isn't as intense as I want. Cool. Enjoy that. Appreciate that. You'll appreciate the intensity more once you earned it. Once your body is capable of handling it long term. This is something that I'm going to get into in future episodes on my podcast about our ability to actually utilize our fuel sources and how training at high intensity only is just breaking you down. We need to be able to have the right ratio between it all. And so when you come back in, don't just go full bore at it, right? Unless you are someone that has had the ability to train under load over the course of this time. If you haven't been able to do that, come back in, sure, get under a barbell, but get under it in a light way, low percentage way. The programming that I have, that I'm writing for my client base, my member base, there's a 2-week cycle that everyone has to go through, reintegrating barbell patterns for those that haven't had a barbell in their hands under load. They're going through a minimum of a 2-week cycle, and that is expanded upon based on scenario, based on individual person. Some people, it's longer. Some people, they're not even touching a barbell yet because they have other things that they're still focusing on and working through. So I get it. It's exciting. We want to get back into things, right? We want to attack those workouts again that we've been missing, the movements, the patterns that we've been missing, the things that we've been missing. For a lot of it, dial it back just a touch. You can handle a couple weeks of dialed back under those movements, under those loads, under those patterns again for a few more weeks to allow your body to respond effectively for your growth and your progress, and not put it in a state of just pure threat where it's just going to lock down, break down, and not work for you. All right. If you have any further questions about what exactly you should do to reintegrate into your training back onto the patterns and the things you were doing before, let me know. Here to help. Level up.